Hi makers, Brandon Zunin here with another MakerSpace webinar instructional video. Today I'm going to be talking about how to easily sharpen a knife. There's many different knife sharpening methods out there. Electrical, whetstones, dry stones, oil stones, belt sharpening systems, all kinds of different things. And many people have many different opinions about what's best for this situation or that situation, what's easier, what's harder. But one of the most common and easiest methods is a dry stone. Here I have a dry stone. This particular dry stone is a diamond dry stone. That's not actually a stone, but a piece of metal with tiny bits of diamond bonded to it. And although it's diamond, these are actually really cheap and easy to come by. I think this one cost me about $10. And I'm going to be sharpening here a kitchen knife that we've been using in our kitchen here and is now dull. And has to be sharpened because it is our only knife. So, depending on what you're doing, what kind of stone you're using, what kind of knife you're sharpening, what kind of steel you're using, your sharpening method will vary or can vary. But one of the tried and true methods is to use a whetstone and to use a pull stroke. Now, anytime you're sharpening, you need to get the correct angle away from your sharpening medium, whatever it is, to get the bevel on the blade. And if you look really closely at this knife, you can see there's three different planes. There's the plane of the tang here. There's the first step down here, which is pretty wide. Maybe that's a quarter inch or half an inch. And then right at the very edge is another neck down. The standard edge bevel is anywhere between high 18, 19 degrees up to maybe 30 degrees. But the most common for kitchen knives in the US and Europe is usually about 20 degrees. Japanese sushi knives are known for having a much sharper angle. So the first thing to do is to see when you have your knife on your medium, whatever it is, that you get the right bevel. And as you get a feel for it, you can kind of feel as you're rocking back and forth when it kind of locks in and you're on that right angle. And you want to start with nice long pulls. And in the beginning, when you have a dull knife, you can do a handful of pulls on each side. With this knife, because it's not too dull, I'm going to start with 3 on this side, and then I'll switch sides and come, and I'll do the same number, 3, on this side. Now, if your knife is really dull, or bent, or you have jagged chips, you may want to do an odd number in the beginning. Maybe you'll want to do, 10 or 15 pulls on one side before you switch over. Also, it's important to note that some knives are not evenly ground. Maybe one side is flat and there's only a bevel on the other side. Now, this particular diamond stone is a fairly aggressive bite, even though it's fine grit, which is why they're very popular, because you can get a nice finish that's not too rough with very few pulls. So now I'm going to switch and just do 1 pull per side. And I'm trying, all the while, it takes practice to keep the angle the same, but I'm trying with each pull throughout the pull to keep the same approximately 20-degree angle. Now what happens if you look down the blade this way, as you sharpen, whenever you do a pull on one side, same on this side here, a metal curls over like this, over on the other side. And when you flip and now you come on this side, you're basically knocking off that curl of metal on this side, and then you'll create a curl on the other side. So as you come here and you do your individual, just 1 on each side, 1 pull, 1 pull, that curl of metal over gets smaller than it is when you do 3 pulls. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come with a lighter and lighter weight. You never really need to push when you're using a dry stone. You can just kind of use the weight of the blade. Maybe you apply a slight bit of pressure. But then coming towards the end, I can do a couple feathering pulls like this, where I'm just really gentle across it here. I'm almost lifting up, so it's not even the entire weight of the blade coming. Oh yeah. And now, I can get a piece of paper, and that's pretty good for this particular diamond stone. Be careful, obviously, when you're sharpening knives. And when you start sharpening, if you haven't sharpened knives before, you may want to start with a knife you don't really care too much about. But don't worry, if you mess it up and it gets wonky and you have wiggles in your blade and everything like that, it's okay. Just keep practicing, and you can take a knife that you've made duller and always bring it back to a good hone. It's impossible to permanently damage any knife, really, through sharpening. Now, this particular grit here is fine enough that I could just leave it. But ideally, even after something like this, you would do what's called stropping the blade, where you would just rip off the tiniest little bits of metal still on there. And usually a strop is some kind of leather. People will use belt or purpose-made strops. But you can also just use your skin if you're careful. So here you can just kind of come and gently give it some stropping action here. Be careful not to cut yourself. Don't push too hard. And you don't need that many strops. And now you're pretty much ready to go. Take care out there, and come back for more MakerSpace webinars from Swarthmore.